Warning number 3 is this: look back, lose it all. In verse 27, it says this: they were eating and drinking and marrying and being given in marriage until the day when Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, just as it was in the days of Lot, they were eating and drinking, buying and selling, planting and building. But on the day when Lot went out from Sodom, fire and sulfur rained from heaven and destroyed them all. So will it be on the day when the Son of Man is revealed. On that day, let the one who is on the housetop with his goods in the house not come down to take them away. And likewise, let the one who is in the field not turn back. Remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to preserve his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life will keep it. Many of us know the answer to the quiz question, what's the shortest verse in the Bible? Anyone? Jesus wept. Did you know there's actually some other two-word verses in the Bible? So it's technically not true, but it's kind of interesting, right? But this is another one of those really short verses. Remember Lot's wife. Now, without any context or background, it kind of is a nothing sentence, right? I can't exactly imagine people going and getting remember what Lot's wife tattooed on your arm, right? But I think maybe we should. I think if we understand the context of what this is saying, the background of this story, maybe we should get it tattooed on our arm as a reminder, a constant warning that the things of this world can easily lead us away from the kingdom of God. The passage tells us that they were eating and drinking and buying and selling and planting and building and all those sort of things. And if we look back actually in the story in Genesis, what we see is we're told that Lot is actually Abraham's nephew. And God takes Abraham and Sarah and Lot and he moves them on towards Canaan. And then there's this point where they decide to split because they've both got lots of cows and sheep or whatever they're herding. And they decide it's better if we go our separate ways. So Abraham and Sarah go off one way and Lot goes off the other way. And Lot ends up in this city of Sodom. And what we're told is that, they were eating and drinking and planting and building and buying and selling. It all sounds like nice things, right? All totally seems normal. But if we look more in the text, we actually see that it was a really, really wicked city. It was wicked. It was full of sin. And in 2 Peter, we're told that Lot is a righteous man. But he was living in a sinful city. And so God decides to destroy Sodom due to their great sin. And in his mercy, and because Abraham has pleaded with God, God sends these 2 angels to Lot as a way of rescuing them. And in this moment, Lot welcomes them in. He says, come into my house. And he invites them in because he knows that the city is so dangerous that these men should not be out there. They should be in my house. And then this mob arrives at the door. And they're like, get those men out. We want to assault these men. Bring them out to us. And Lot's like, no. But we can tell that this city has kind of changed Lot. And he, although he's righteous, he's kind of succumbed to the city because instead of just saying no, he says, you can have my daughters. And the mob are like, no, we don't want the daughters, we want the men. And so they start banging on the doors. And so these angels, they make the mob blind. And this whole mob of people that are out there trying to attack these angels suddenly are blind and flailing around. And the angels are like, look, Lot, you have got to get out of this city. Destruction is coming. Get out. Take your wives, take your wife, take your kids, take their families, and go and leave this city. Lot's sons-in-laws, they dismiss his warning as if it's a joke, and they stay. And Lot, in a sort of slightly hesitation, even though the destruction is looming, but the angels take Lot and his wife and his daughters out of the city. And as sulfur and fire rains down on this city, they are told to flee the city and to not look back. But in that moment, Lot's wife disobeyed God. She turned back. She wanted to see what she was leaving behind. And as a result, she was turned into a pillar of salt. So warning number 3 is if you look back, we will lose it all. Don't be like Lot's wife. Remember Lot's wife. God calls us to a life of following him. When we accept the free gift of salvation, God calls us into this life where we get to follow him, and he calls us holy and righteous because of our new identity in him. And that means sacrifice. Jesus sacrificed everything. He sacrificed his whole self so that you and I could step into a relationship with him. And we are therefore called to sacrifice the things of this world, the sin that we participate in. We're called to sacrifice that for the things of heaven and the kingdom of God. Some of you may know this already, but the day that I passed my driving test when I was 17 was not a happy day in our family. You'd think it was, right? Woo, I passed my driving test, how exciting. But it was also the day I crashed the car for the first time too. And about 2 hours after passing my test, my mum agreed that I could go and do my first solo trip to college. And I was so excited because we were going to take the girls out afterwards for coffee. It was going to be the best day. And I got in the car and I shoved all my workbooks and my bag on the passenger seat and I drove. And I drove out of the street, literally 100 meters from my house. And as I drove out of my street, I turned a corner and my bag fell onto the gear stick. I took my eyes off the road. I moved the bag at the same time, moved the steering wheel by accident, and I came off the road, up onto the curb, and crashed smash into an electrical box. I wrote off the car, kind of. My parents, in their grace, paid for it to be fixed because they didn't want me to be too traumatized by the experience. But you see, I took my eyes off of the direction of travel, and I veered off course. You know, I don't know if anyone else saw over Christmas, there was all these like Instagram videos of people doing these cool, fun Christmas family activities. Anyone see the one in the square? We have to be blind, shut your eyes and march in a square for 30 seconds. We did that one at our house. It was great fun. And so you basically have a square, you get blindfolded, and you have to literally just march on the spot. Do you know what? Because you're not looking where you're going, you end up miles away from the square. It was so bizarre. I was like, why is my brother holding my knees? He's like, I'm just trying to stop you from hitting the table. I was like, oh, I'm that far away from the square? But you see, like when we stop looking at the direction we're going and we turn our head, even if just as slightly, we veer off course. Luke 9:62 says, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the service in the kingdom of God. In this passage, we are told that destruction comes. It came when with Noah and the flood. It came with Lot and the destruction of Sodom. And we're told that during those times, people were eating and drinking and marrying and buying and planting. And they were going about their normal life, right? And we're told that this will be the same when the Son of God returns. We will be going about our normal everyday life when the Son of God returns. And so we must be prepared. We can't just assume that there'll be some sort of sign the day before for us to go, okay, God, I give it all to you today. I haven't lived that way for the last 10 years, but right now I'm going to give it to you because I know you're coming tomorrow. There's not an alarm clock that's going to go off. We have to be giving our lives to Jesus all the time. We have to be prepared to leave everything for the rescue. Lot's wife wasn't prepared to leave everything for the rescue, but we must be. It says like the one on the rooftop who doesn't go back down into his house to get his goods, or the one in the field who doesn't look back at his house for the rescue. You see, the problem for Lot's wife was that the sin of the city had been so all-consuming that for her it had become kind of normal. And in that moment, as she is walking out of that city and she's told not to look back, she suddenly thought, I might miss this. I might miss that life, that sin. And it tempted her and drew her into disobedience, and as a result, she turned into a pillar of salt. She missed out on what God had for her because she was too focused on what she was walking away from. Hebrews 12:1-2 says this, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus. It tells us to throw off our sin. God will often lead us and say, you know, that thing that you do, you shouldn't be doing that. But it also tells us to throw off the things that hinder us. They may not be sinful, but the way we use them might be sinful. And so God tells us to throw those off too. I wonder if for anyone in this room, the sin of this city whether it's become normal to you. Are there sins in this city that you will miss? Is there anything you would turn back for? God calls us to holiness and righteousness. Is that a description of our lives? Or have we compromised in order to fit into the city that we live in?